Hi, my name is Julianne, also known as Roadrunner, and in 2022 I thru-hiked the entire Appalachian Trail, and in 2024 I thru-hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. Today I want to talk a little bit about the most dangerous places on the Pacific Crest Trail. So the first part of the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a 2,655-mile trail, is called the desert. And the desert is approximately 700 miles, and a lot of people assume that since it's called a desert, that you wouldn't necessarily come across any snow or bad weather. However, that is a very, very big misconception. And in fact, when I did my thru hike, I was actually caught in a snowstorm on day 3 of my Pacific Crest Trail thru hike. That wasn't too bad because we knew that the snowstorm was coming, and so we just took reprieve in a town called Mount Laguna.
Well, I guess the snow came after all. It didn't look like it was gonna come,
South California.
but it sure is here.
However, the very first dangerous spot on the Pacific Crest Trail is something called Apache Peak. Now, Apache Peak is a section where when there is snow, the snow is so steep that you are very likely to be able to slip if you are not careful, as well as if you do not have the appropriate gear with you, such as an ice axe and micro spikes. Now, when we approached Apache Peak, my family and I at the time were really interested to check out that section by ourselves before we decided to reroute it. We got to the spot and saw that, yes, indeed, it was extremely steep, and I had not done any sort of self-arresting with my ice axe. Now, I had my ice axe with me, and I had my micro spikes with me, but it looked so dangerous that I personally felt that it would have not been a wise decision to cross this area. There have been deaths when it comes to that particular area, so it additionally very much intimidated me. So instead of crossing that particular section, we walked around it and we went over actual Apache Peak rather than taking the Pacific Crest Trail part of the route, still maintaining our continuous footpath, however.
So the rest of us decided to walk around the snow piece, so we are going back to where it allows us to get right over the peak. Apparently, if you go right over the peak, it's safer than those side slides.
Now, the second spot that I found really dangerous on the Pacific Crest Trail is something called Fuller Ridge. This is also a very well-known spot on the Pacific Crest Trail that a lot of people warn you about, basically for the same reasons. When there's snow, you're likely to have to traverse very, very steep, slanted trails that really could cause you to slip and fall. Personally, I didn't slip and fall, but one of my trail family members did, and he was extremely intimidated afterwards. Do keep in mind, having a ice axe and micro spikes with you really helps you feel a lot more confident, but that really does not prevent you from falling. So you really need to learn how to self-arrest. Another very dangerous spot on the Pacific Crest Trail, in my opinion, is some areas in a section called Mission Creek. Now, Mission Creek is a creek that has been damaged extraordinarily by a storm many years ago. And so hikers have to essentially walk in the bed of the creek at times, cross a lot of water sources.
River Crossin! 500 River Crossin!
So you guys say that a lot today.
River Crossin!
And there is a particular area where you can choose to shortcut it and hike over a very, very steep ridge, or to take the trail or whatever is left of the trail and try to, hike that part. Now, our family decided to try to hike the actual part of the Mission Creek, even though the trail was literally gone. And there was one particular area that I found extremely dangerous, and that was in a curve of a mountain. So I don't know exactly what it's called, but you walk alongside the mountain and then it curves really drastically and goes to another. The storm had damaged it so much that the trail was no longer there. So our only option really was to hike all the way down into the divot as well as all the way up, and we did that, and it was extremely scary and dangerous. In fact, it was quite strenuous where I pulled one of my I pulled this particular muscle and had a hard time using it for a few more days after. I know that most people who know anything about the Pacific Crest Trail would probably figure that the High Sierra is one of the more dangerous areas of the Pacific Crest Trail, and I would have to agree. First of all, when you come into the Sierra, when you go into the Sierra, it is not very easy to get out. To get out of that area, you have to climb over other passes to be able to get back into town. Kearsarge Pass, for example, is a 9-mile hike out to town or the trailhead, and Bishop Pass is I think around 12 miles of a hike out. Now that is not Pacific Crest Trail miles. That's purely for you to try to get out of the Sierra. So that in itself really creates a dangerous scenario, because what if you injure yourself? It's not very easy to get out. Likely you'll have to call for help and a helicopter would have to carry you out. But what really makes this area so dangerous is when there are high snow years, the mountain passes and the river crossings are exhausting. Not only do you have to traverse through deep snow that often gets slushy because it is time for the snow to melt, but also you have to go through roaring rivers. So the 3 sections that I felt that were the most dangerous in the High Sierra were Forester Pass, Mather Pass, and the crossing of Bear Creek. Do not get me wrong, there were many river crossings that I found extremely dangerous. But it wasn't until I got to Bear Creek that looked from the outside really not that bad. It looked like a wide river. It moved fast, not as fast as some of the other rivers I had seen, and you were not able to determine the strength of the current by just looking at it. So once I got into the river, I truly felt the danger of that water source. I was, the water came above my hips, the current pulled on me, I had to slam my trekking poles into the ground to try to make it. Thankfully, I made it, but I do find this to be a very dangerous river crossing, and if there is an opportunity for you to somehow find a reroute, I'd recommend it. Bougie and I, we had not looked at any notes in Far Out, so we weren't aware that this was a dangerous river crossing, and we didn't really find that out until after we had crossed it.
We just crossed that, but this is a life-threatening creek. It doesn't look like much. The current is so strong, and yeah, I have my opinion about making us cross this kind of river over and over again, but we put ourselves into the situation, I guess, right? But this is a very dangerous river right here.
Now, somewhere the lady that we hiked with knew about it and went around it, and Boss Bay and Bird Call had to wait one day to be able to cross Bear Creek. So it is clearly a very dangerous area in the Sierra. Now, what makes Mather Pass as well as Forster Pass so dangerous, I personally think only when it snows. When we got to Forster Pass, we really couldn't make out any trails. We were faced with a snow ice wall, and essentially we had to mountain climb up this ice wall. And that was very, very intimidating, and one of our family members did slip but was able to self-arrest herself. Now, Bather Pass is very much the same. You get to the bottom of the pass and you essentially have two options: to essentially climb up the rock wall that had not very sturdy rocks, or to ice axe your way up the ice wall.
All right, so we've discussed things. First option is up this here way, then down this, and then somehow switchy backy boop 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 boop. However, a lot of people say that this is sketchy right here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go up, and then bloop, 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 and then up. I'm thinking I'm gonna go half like here, then bloop, 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 and then up. But I might go boom. But I think this would be a little bit better.
Two of us decided to ice axe our way up, and two of us decided to rock climb over the tumbling rocks. All four of us made it, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it was incredibly dangerous. Another section that I personally found extremely dangerous was basically because I underestimated the danger. We had seen this little red mark in far out, indicating that there is a section that might be a little bit problematic when trying to cross it across snow. I didn't think any of it. We hadn't had any snow crossings for a while, and suddenly we came across this patch of icy snow. I felt overconfident, decided not to put on my micro spikes, and also decided not to take out my ice axe. Sure enough, I crossed the snow section and I slipped and I fell. There was no way for myself to self-arrest, and I essentially had to wait until I was done falling. I did do the whole like starfish thing where I spread my arms out trying to make myself get some sort of hold, but I really had to wait until gravity was done doing its job. That really intimidated me, and I no longer felt secure in my abilities to cross snowy sections. Luckily, I did have an opportunity to cross another patch of snow just a few yards down, and I had forced myself to cross it in order for me to gain confidence again, which happened. Personally, I don't think there is much of any danger when it comes to North California or Oregon. But if you have watched any of my videos, you know that I am extremely intimidated by the state of Washington. Washington is scary and dangerous because of the weather changes and how fast it can happen. You can be in sun at one point, and all of a sudden a big cloud will come in, everything will get dark, it'll start raining, temperatures drop, and it's really quite scary. So for me, the state of Washington is one of the most dangerous places on the Pacific Crest Trail. Now, I know that this was a very broad explanation of why these particular spots were dangerous. If you're interested to see more, do check out my daily vlogs that I had for the Pacific Crest Trail, and you will see exactly what happened at each of the spots and what made them so dangerous. Now, I am planning to hike the Appalachian Trail again this year, very soon. So if you're interested in following my journey, come on with me. I think you will enjoy it, as I know I will. So I hope to see you there. I hope to see you there, or I hope for you to see me. So anyway, see you soon.